Alright guys, today we are going to break down the new Mortal Kombat 2 movie trailer. Now, after this, I am going to literally, when the movie comes out, I will do a review of it. So definitely subscribe to the channel if you want to get notified about that. So I just want to quickly say I'm going to break everything down into basically characters and what I think they're going to do in the movie and all that sort of thing. And that will basically give a good idea of how the movie is going to pretty much flow. And then towards the end, I'll just give my overall thoughts about what we see here. So starting off with our first character, I think it's obvious we have to talk about Johnny Cage here, right? I must say he looks pretty good. I don't agree with the casting, but I understand that Carl Urban is a very popular actor as of right now. So I think he will do a good job at Johnny Cage. I'm not totally digging the way he looks, but like it's fine. Like if as long as he does a good part in the role as Johnny Cage, I really don't got a problem with it. Also, he's from New Zealand, which is really nice. It's good to see some actors outside of America in actual movies. One thing I would say is throughout this trailer, we don't see him use his powers at all, right? And he states throughout the trailer that he doesn't have powers. So I think the thing is with this movie universe is that if somebody that is chosen for Mortal Kombat needs to have this thing called an arcana, which is basically a tattoo, right? And once you do something, you'll figure out what the arcana does and it'll give you your powers. I think that will happen to Johnny Cage in this movie. Otherwise, I don't understand why he's picked at all by Raiden. But anyway, as you can see, we're obviously going to see the Arcana probably unlock through the tournament, doing, I don't know, probably fighting Baraka or something like that. I have no idea. It will be one of those things, though, that will happen. It'd be really weird if he was just a guy that didn't have any bells. Yeah. Other than that, I do say the stuntman that did the work for Johnny Cage did a phenomenal job. You can see he does a lot of flips and acrobatics, which is very much like the Johnny Cage that we're used to in the games. So that is a really nice touch that they put in there. In terms of the story, you can see at the beginning of the trailer that he's a washed-up actor, which is fair enough. Let's see that they've gone with that. It's very law accurate that he's a washed-up, actor. So I'm glad that they've stuck to the source material on that one. In terms of there's some really cool references, to Citizen Cage that's been mentioned a few times in the last couple games of movies that he's made. So that's there. The Uncaged Fury trailer. If you guys haven't checked that out, you should definitely do that with the link below. But yeah, I think that will be a good insight onto Johnny Cage and how he is pretty much, and introduce him to people that may not know who he is. Johnny Cage, as you can see, is completely oblivious to what's going on, right? So that's typical Johnny Cage stuff. There is a cut between Shao Kahn and then it cuts to Johnny Cage and he says a line. So I think Johnny Cage will either be the main character and fight Shao Kahn, or more likely that he will be like still the main character pretty much of the whole movie, but they will make him fight like a sub-boss character that they probably haven't revealed. It's like it'd be a character that's like fully CGI, like Kintaro or Shiva or something like that. It'd be cool to have Motaro, but I think they might save that for the next movie or something like that. Towards the end of the trailer, we have Johnny Cage and Kano end up in the Netherrealm. Now, I don't know how this happens, but they might get sent there by one of the sorcerers or Shao Kahn himself, something like that. And they end up fighting a Noob Saibot, or Bihan as they call it in this. I think Johnny Cage maybe, will unlock his powers pretty much towards the end of the movie and then use it in his final fight, maybe against a sub-boss or something like that. That's pretty much how Johnny Cage is going to go. He's going to be a pretty stock standard character like he usually is. And I think Carl Urban will do a good job on Johnny Cage, so I'm excited to see him play the role. Now we move on to Shao Kahn. I must say, Shao Kahn's design is a huge hit, I must say. I do like the helmet, the costume, everything's pretty good. You can see him kill a jobby here, which, It's typical Shao Kahn things. I do want to focus on this one part where Liu Kang shoots fire at him. This might be the final fight, or it could be that Liu Kang fights him a little like in towards the middle of the movie and maybe dies. I'm not sure about this, but most likely it will be the final fight. One thing I do want to say is the actor, to put on the amount of size he did, I know he's already a big guy, but he did really, really well. He's naturally 6'8", which is really, really tall. And then, if you don't know, Shao is meant to be 7'2", so being 6'8", honestly, and then having him tower over, other characters, that needs to be like a big thing. It needs to be a big intimidating presence. And I think they kind of nailed that with the casting. I also assume that they'll use some props and CGI to make him just a little bit taller, right? Just to make him look even bigger than everybody else. You can see in this shot where he is getting a fan to his helmet, you can see that Shao Kahn is a little bit hunched over, so this might not be his full height in this shot. Hopefully he looks a little bit taller and intimidating than he is here. One thing I do want to say about the story is Shao Kahn is usually not the first character we get in the tournament. In the first tournament anyway, it's usually Shang Tsung. But they used the whole Shang Tsung as the villain before in the first movie, and it didn't really make sense. And now we're in the tournament, and now Shao Kahn just shows up. So it doesn't make sense, but I respect that they just want to put Shao Kahn in there and then put like maybe Shang on the side, which is totally fine because Shao, as everyone knows, even a little bit of knowledge about Mortal Kombat, you know that Shao Kahn is the big, big bad guy. So I personally still think it was too early to introduce him. I would have introduced him maybe in the next movie, but we're just going to have to respect the writer's decision of putting him in this movie. Another thing that I don't like about Shao being the big bad in this movie is where do you go from here, right? Shao is one of the biggest and the baddest in the entire series, and there's not too many other villains that top him, or are more powerful than him, I should say, right? And even if you go on to some other villains, they may not even be as powerful as Shao Kahn, right? There's no way of knowing that this might be like the second movie and then they may not make another movie, which is totally fine, right? But if they go to make another movie, who do they make the next big bad if they defeat Shao Kahn in this movie? Is it Shinnok? Right? Because you don't know, Quan was announced in the casting of the movie as a character, obviously, but he literally doesn't show up in the trailer once. So Shinnok is a possibility, but he's not as strong as Shao Kahn. So I wouldn't understand, but it seems like if they did do a bit of a lead up, that would be the next thing. Now, there are other options like Onaga and Blaze as well. Listen, I really don't think they should do an Onaga or Blaze type situation because think about it like this. Onaga and Blaze, think about it according to the MCU, Onaga and Blaze is like for Infinity War and Endgame, right? It's that type of level where you're really in the end times, right, of a saga. And there's no point putting these, villains in now if you're going to end the series in like the next movie, which really wouldn't make sense. But anyway, they could also just remember that Quan Chi, like I said, was announced, but he's not in the trailer anyway. So we could have a situation where we maybe don't even go a Shinnok route and it might be like Quan Chi and Shang Tsung work together like a Deadly Alliance situation. I don't think they would do that, to be honest, but it's a possibility and it's been done before, obviously, from the Deadly Alliance game. And the only thing I want to say I don't like about Shao Kahn is the voice. The voice doesn't sound right. I'm sure you guys heard it as well. It doesn't sound like Shao Kahn. It sounds like that, like, no offense to the actor, I'm sure he's done a great job. It's just that actor doesn't sound like Shao Kahn. And I think it's as simple as putting a voiceover on the voice. I don't think it was a very complex fix for his voice, but it's too late, right? We're here, we've got the trailer. Anyway, that's Shao Kahn. let's move on to Noob Saibot, or as they call it in the poster, Bihan. I see that they've stuck to their original names rather than the character names. The only reason they stuck to the Bihan name is so people aren't confused from the last movie to this movie. If you know anything about Mortal Kombat, you'll know that a lot of people understand to struggle the difference between an older Sub-Zero, a younger Sub-Zero, and Noob Saibot. All three of them get mixed and mushed together with a lot of casual people. So them sticking to the name Bihan throughout the original Sub-Zero to the Noob Saibot is a good idea, just because casuals don't understand like what they're watching. Other than that, I will say Noob Saibot looks amazing. I'm going to call him Noob Saibot in this because he's new. He looks amazing. Now, as you can see, early on, he only has the noob part, right, which is Bihan himself. He doesn't have the Saibot part until, well, you know, the spears come out of Scorpion and then he rips the clone out of him. I do want to say, even though we see the Saibot cut in half pretty much, just remember that Noob is a Spectre, which means he can't die, right? He's in a situation where he pretty much can't die. He can be defeated, but he can't die because he's somebody who's been brought back from the dead. So he's just going to be brought back from the dead again. I think in this scene where we see Scorpion cut Saibot in half, is after that, we'll see him like reform and then it will be the whole Noob Saibot combination. Which I think this fight will happen earlier on in the movie rather than later on. I can guarantee you guys, absolutely guarantee you guys, that Noob Saibot is only going to have 2 or 3 scenes in the entire movie, without a doubt. This character is not important to the plot. It's literally a character that's going to be a little bit of fan service, and it's the whole Hanzo Hasashi versus Bihan slash, Scorpion versus Sub-Zero matchup that everyone wants to see, pretty much. And that's as far as it's going to be. Noob also shows up against Johnny Cage and Kano in the Netherrealm, so that will be another time he shows up. And then maybe against Jade individually, but I think I actually have a different theory on why Jade shows up in Netherrealm. And yeah, that's Noob in a nutshell. Let's move on to another newer character that they've added, which is Baraka. Now, Baraka, he has an interesting design. I can't say that they've taken this out of MK11 at all because, as you can see, they look quite different. But I don't hate the design at all. I think the Tarkatans are probably the hardest characters to put in the live action because they're so human-like, but they've got to look very monster-like, right? It's one of the harder things to do. It's not like a Reptile, where Reptile can be like a human in a ninja suit or is a total reptilian thing, right? It's not as simple and clear-cut as that. So I commend them for giving Baraka costume or, CGI that isn't totally rubbish, right? It's not amazing, but it looks okay. I will say the blades look very good. They look like they're straight out of the game, to be honest. The design of the costume is a little bit off, I must say. He is a bit outlandish, home. I don't know what he kind of looks like, but it looks like he lives in a wasteland, which is fine because it's Baraka. But like, you have to think Baraka is the commanding-in-chief of Shao Kahn's forces in the games. So if he's not that in this, I guess the costume makes sense. The teeth, let's be honest, the teeth look a little weird, but like I said, I think they've done a very good job considering that Tarkatans are pretty much the hardest characters to get right in the entire series. Even though it's like the teeth and the jaw is like protruding out, it's fine. It works out. Another thing I do like is they have tear effects on his skin. I don't know whether they've make up that or CGI or whatever it is, but they've done a very good job on that because that is something that's very clear on Baraka ever since he's been a character, right? So they did a great job of that. And then obviously we see Baraka killing a jobber here towards the end of the trailer. I'm sure that will happen midway through the movie. And yeah, that's Baraka in a nutshell. I think he'll have a pretty minimal role. I think he'll just be a character that's going to be beat by one of the main characters from our Earthrealm, unfortunately, because he's always sort of been that character besides MK1. Now we're going to move on to Sindel. Sindel has a very short clip. She only has one clip in this trailer, and it's this one right here. And as you can see, her with a very classic MK3 like skin. This skin, like the costume that they've gotten for her and the hair, is not from MK11, which, wow, you know, Sindel looked amazing in MK11, but they went with a more classic look from MK3. They got black hair with a white streak in the middle type thing, and then more of a classic costume, which I don't hate. I think it's a good idea. Yeah, it's obvious that Sindel has some markings under her eyes, so she's probably, you know, being controlled by either one of Quan Chi or Shao Kahn, right? It's been that story for a very long time. I know they retconned it in MK11, but we're not going to talk about that. It's safe to say that Sindel is going to be manipulated by Quan Chi and Shao Kahn. If you don't know, King Jerrod is also revealed to be in the movie. He's not in the trailer, obviously, but I'm sure King Jerrod would have some sort of part with either Sindel, whatever minor part she does have, or either with Kitana. And I'll get onto Kitana now in a second. I feel like the writers and directors, they sort of mix and match what Quan Chi and Shang Tsung can do, whereas in the games it's very cut and clear, right? Shang Tsung is just an evil, manipulating person, and he shapeshifts himself. But Quan Chi is a person from that's like a necromancer. He brings people back from the dead, right? And he's a normal combatant. Other than that, because he's just a sorcerer, he does, you know, skulls and all that sort of thing. But with the movies, I've noticed that they sort of mix and match their powers, which I don't like, but I can see them making an excuse for it, of course. Moving on to Kitana. Now, I'm going to call it now. I think Kitana's going to get a lot of screen time. Maybe not a lot of talking, you know, lines, scenes and stuff, but I think she'll have a lot of screen time. If you don't know, there is a child version of Kitana that has been cast. So most likely we're going to get a flashback of Kitana when she's a kid. I can see them doing Shao Kahn invading Edenia type thing, and then Kitana's a child, and maybe, you know, Sindel gets captured and he kills King Jerrod, that sort of thing. It'd be really good to see that flashback. They could also just be a generic flashback of like Kitana training with like a child Jade. I don't think that's as possible though, because there's no child Jade cast for the movie. It's only a child Kitana. So I think the invasion of Edenia and Shao Kahn killing Jerrod and putting a spell on Sindel in Kitana's flashback might be the most likely thing to happen in Kitana's flashback. I'm assuming they're going to give a lot of backstory on her because she's already working with Earthrealm, which, if you don't know, Kitana is usually on the side of our world when she is introduced, and then eventually she becomes like one of the quote-unquote good guys and then joins Earthrealm with most likely, which she's mostly like a love interest of Liu Kang, but I can see them not doing that in this, and that works out totally fine. I think Raiden is more around recruiting people more than the whole love story between Liu Kang and Kitana, which is, I think, a good idea. I can say that, honestly, the CGI on Kitana's moves and the fans, they look good. I would have liked some wind effects, right? I think that would have been nice, but oh, you know, floating fan, we get it. She uses it. I don't like that it only spins. It should do other things as well. But, and then again, we just watched the trailer. We haven't seen all of the movie, right? So I'm not going to be too harsh on it. Her fight with Jade is either just training or her convincing her to join the Earthrealm, right? It's not going to be anything too major. I'm going to say most likely that it's just them training, to be honest. And then at some point, we see in the trailer, Kitana tries to assassinate Shao Kahn. Obviously, she's going to fail. This has happened before. And yeah, it's just how the story is going to go, unfortunately for her. But I see her getting a lot of screen time, and I think she'll be a very good character. Moving on to Jade. Now, I know Jade is one of the most talked about characters and controversial characters in this trailer. And I must say, I'm not a fan of the bald head. It makes no sense. right? And I can understand why fans are upset is because she's usually a very pretty looking character with very long hair or either a tied up bun or a ponytail or something like that, right? Braided ponytail, I think it's called. But anyway, not the point. The point is she's supposed to be a very good looking character, and not doing that in the trailer and the movie might be a little disappointing for fans. I totally understand that, but if she's a good character, I think I'm willing to look past all of that anyway. I will say the CGI on her green stuff looks amazing. It's probably the best CGI thing in the entire movie. She ends up in Netherrealm at some point. I don't think she has a 1v1 with Noob Saibot. I don't think that's the thing that happens. I think she's just sent by Raiden to help Johnny and Kano against Noob Saibot. I think that's all it is to it. And then, we have the whole shots of her training with Jax and Kitana here, which is very typical things. And I will say the costume looks okay. It looks okay. It's not the best looking costume I've ever seen on Jade, but it's okay. And like I said, the staff looks amazing, so I think that makes up for a lot of it. We're going to move on to characters that were not shown in the trailer, but we know are there, right? And this is going to start off with Quan Chi and Shang Tsung. Shang Tsung, I don't think, was shown in this trailer at all. Neither was Quan Chi, even though Quan Chi is a character that was definitely announced. I think they're saving him because he's a very important character in the movie, or will be an important character for the next movie. Obviously, you have the whole Sindel manipulation with either Quan Chi or Shang Tsung, so that's going to be another driving force in the movie. It's going to be like a side plot line, of course, that's MK has plenty of already. If I'm correct on how, if Quan Chi is like in this movie with the whole Sindel manipulation, is very on track that Shao then is defeated. Maybe he doesn't die, but he's defeated. And then you get Quan Chi sort of sniffling out Shinnok with the amulet type of thing for the third movie. I can see that happening then. Or we could, have the Deadly Alliance team up between Quan Chi and Shang Tsung for the next movie, which would be interesting for sure. I think both of these characters will have very minimal screen time. They're going to have important roles, but very minimal screen time. And they're the sorcerers. Let's talk about King Jerrod now. King Jerrod is going to be very short, as you see. Most likely, we're either going to get King Jerrod in one of two places. He's going to be in the flashback that is going to be the invasion of Edania and what happened with her family and all that sort of thing. Or it's going to be King Jerrod showing up to maybe help Sindel be herself type thing. I hope there's not a lame explanation for it, but either one of those two King Jerrod will show up in, or he'll be in both, right? And I think that's all the screen time King Jerrod actually deserves because he's not that much of a main character. Now we're going to move on to the characters that were already in the first movie and the return, right? So these will be a lot shorter than the new characters because we had a lot to go through with the new ones, but the older characters returning. Now, first of all, let's do Raiden. Raiden, CGI on the lightning looks amazing. It's one of the best looking CGI things in this movie. I will say, or we do see him recruit Johnny Cage in the trailer, which is obvious. That's sort of Raiden's thing. He collects the warriors of Earthrealm and then, sends them into the tournament, all that sort of thing. So I'm definitely not upset with Raiden. I think a lot of people that wanted the hair, I think we're just going to have to live without it. It is what it is. But I must say, his costume looks amazing. His hat is amazing, looks good. And I don't think there's too many faults that I can give Raiden. I would say we see Raiden waking up here. It's either Raiden waking up from being asleep because he has to do something important, which really sounds dumb, but trust me, it will make sense if it happens in the movie. Or he just got knocked the hell out and then he just woke up, right? And then he's pissed. So it's going to be one of those two things. Now, as usual, Raiden is going to have an important role in the story. He always does of Mortal Kombat. There's no doubt about it. But I don't see him being in every single scene. I think because Raiden is always a character that's always super important, but they always give him a side mission. Like he's always got to do something else in the meantime while the Earthrealm Warrior's got to do something else, right? Also, I don't know around the rules of Raiden being in Outworld. Usually, Raiden is weaker when he goes to Outworld. I don't know if that's going to be a thing in this movie, but that's usually the way it is. And also, another reason we're not going to see too much of Raiden is because Raiden isn't allowed to fight in the tournament. So, another returning character, we have Sonya Blade. I would say it's good to see Sonya Blade back. She's just a very normal-like character. She looks very much like the MK11 design, I must say. As you can see in this clip here, she uses her projectiles from her hands. I will say, putting Sonya here against Sindel is a big issue. One of two things is going to happen. Sonya either gets help from somebody else to help Sindel become herself, like normal self again, or my call might be that Sonya dies here, honestly, because if you don't know, Sindel is like one of the most powerful fighters in the entire universe. Like, she's not like the very top, but if you remember MK9, well, yeah. It's a real mismatch putting Sonya against Sindel, so this is either a very story-driven fight or it's going to be a very one-sided fight, and there's really no in-between. And yeah, and we get some extra shots of her just helping Raiden recruit people, which, yeah, is very Sonya normal-like. I've put Liu Kang and Kung Lao under the same branch. Now, the reason I've done this is because Kung Lao died in the first movie, which means he's cast for this movie, which means he's going to be a Revenant. He's either brought back by Shang Tsung or Quan, one of the two. I don't really think it's going to matter. And Kung Lao will have a very, very small part in Liu Kang's character development, I think, and that will be literally it. Credits to the costume designers or the people of the movie, because they finally fixed the hat size. My God, he looked like he was wearing a mini sombrero before. As you can see, we have this awesome shot of the portal stage from classic MK games. Obviously not the right color because it's blue, but I think we can put that aside because this looks amazing. And you see Liu Kang and Kung Lao facing off here. Most likely Liu Kang will defeat Kung Lao and try and bring him to his senses. I hope it doesn't work though. Breaking that cycle between Revenants should not be as simple as defeating them. I'm really hoping they do not go that route. It'd be really good if they didn't. However, if there's some crazy plot armor and you just defeat Revenants and they become themselves again, I'm going to flip. Other than that, we see Kung Lao and Liu Kang's fight gets interrupted by somebody here when they go through like the little fatality montage at the end of the trailer. Liu Kang ends up fighting somebody else while Revenant Kung Lao throws the hat at him. Not sure about this. I don't know who this character is, but I'm sure we'll find out soon enough when we watch the movie. Most likely Liu Kang. We're going to move on a bit from Kung Lao and go to Liu Kang here. Like I said, if you know me, I don't like the casting. He doesn't look like Liu Kang. He doesn't act like Liu Kang, honestly. But I'm just going to have to live with it. Liu Kang will either fight Shao Kahn at the end of the very movie, or at the very end of the movie where we see this big fire thing that he does and puts it towards Shao Kahn. That'll probably be the final fight. Most likely that's what it's going to be. Or this might happen a little bit in the middle of the movie and maybe a little bit towards the end, but not at the very end, right? And maybe Liu Kang dies. And I think Liu Kang dying is not out of the realm of possibility here because he has done so many times before. So maybe he dies and becomes, a Revenant as well, and then maybe it's up to Johnny Cage to finish off Shao Kahn, which would be interesting to see for sure. But yeah, most likely more often than not, it's going to be Liu Kang, Shao Kahn, big final fight at the end of the movie. Moving on to Kano. Absolute carry of the first movie. He was like the only good thing in the first movie, I must say. I believe that Kano will not be like his game self, like ever in this movie series, whatever you want to call it. I think he'll just continue being the comedy relief. I'm not opposed to it. I would have liked to see more Black Dragon Kano involvement and Sonya Blade type thing, and it's more side character development for both of them. But I think they don't want to do that, so that's totally fine, I guess. Obviously excited to see more of him because the actor did a phenomenal job in the first movie. He really did. Like I said before, he helps Johnny Cage in fighting against Noob, or Johnny Cage helps him, basically. I think Jade will also show up to help them defeat Noob. Because, I think they're going to make Noob a very powerful character, especially since he's going to have the whole Shadow clone Saibot with him. And they made him very strong as Sub-Zero in the first movie for whatever reason. Like I said, I don't know what the writers are thinking of half the time, though. Jax obviously is returning. He has probably a very small role in the movie. Jax is a very, very side character. Trust me. He only ever gets involved when Sonya is involved in something, or whenever she's in danger. We see him training here with Earthrealm Warriors. I think he's just going to beat some jobbers. I don't think he's going to be too very high up in the tournament. I think it would be interesting to see Jax helping Sonya fight Sindel. I think that's a possibility, to be honest. And if that happens, I think both of them die. If not, it'd be like Kitana helping Sonya and then remembering her mum and that type. Jax also is been a Revenant as well, so that's not something other possibility as well. Also tying into the Quan Chi Revenant type thing, because Quan Chi is definitely going to have an important role in the movie. I'd be really shocked if he didn't. And having a Revenant Jax for maybe the next movie would be pretty good for him. Everyone's favorite poster boy of the franchise returns, Scorpion. And obviously he'll have some screen time. He's not a super, super important character to the story, but is always one of the cooler characters, so I understand that he is going to get his own scenes. I know we see him say it's time or something like that here, so that might be him having conversation with Raiden that he's tracked down Noob Saibot type thing, or Bihan specifically, to the Netherrealm, and then, later on in the trailer we see him actually fight Noob and then bring the Saibot clone out of him as well. So I think that's as far as we're going to get with Scorpion. I think Scorpion is not going to have too much of a involvement in the story. I really hope not, because he's not that important. It'd be cool to see him have a few fights in the tournament, but I don't think they're going to do that with him. And look, I must say, in the Netherrealm, the CGI and the camera work on this clip in the trailer looks amazing. It's crazy, but what do we expect, right? It's Scorpion. He gets special treatment from all the other characters, being Ed Boon's favorite. I think it'll be a cool character. He'll show up for a little bit just to give you the whole Hanzo vs. Bihan / Scorpion / Sub-Zero fight, and that will be it. And everybody's favorite, most useless character returns, Cole Young. But I'm not too pissed about it, I must say, because he seems to have a very backstage role in this movie, which is fine. I think he should have always been a backstage character, or a side character at the very least. He shouldn't have beat Goro in the first movie. That's something I must say. He should not have beat Goro in the first movie. I would have loved to have seen Johnny Cage versus Goro this movie, but anyway, I'm starting to get on a rant. In this scene, he doesn't have very few clips in this trailer, I will say, but he does have one here. It's a very quick one, and he's in the Deadpool stage, which, if you don't know, is a dungeon in Shao Kahn's fortress. And it has a single lane, and it has pools of acid on either side. So I think we'll get a quick fight with him here against somebody, maybe a character that doesn't matter too much, or maybe even a jobber, and we'll get, an acid pool fatality / finisher. The director was very adamant about the fatalities being better than the last movie. I guess we'll see about that. Moving on to my overall thoughts, I thought that the CGI in this movie has improved a lot compared to the last one. And overall, it looks great. It literally looks great for everything. But when Raiden, Sonya, and Johnny Cage are together at the top of what I presume is going to be Raiden's Sky Temple, it looks off. There's two different clips of it, right? There's one here where they just look like cutouts on a back piece, right? And then here again, it's not as obvious, but it looks okay. Like I said, the CGI is not a full knowing factor about the movie. If the story is amazing, we're willing to look past all of this, right? And I'm being very nitpicky because, I'm an MK fan. The Earthrealm Warriors, where the training sets are, where they train and the sets around them, they look amazing, phenomenal. They did a great job with that. I just want to say Outworld looks a little weird. I don't want to say this, but it looks very ancient Egyptian-ish, which I don't know how to feel about that. They did a big decision in not making Outworld sky purple, I will say. If you don't know, Outworld's sky is usually purple because when Shao Kahn is the ruler, that's the effect he has on the world. I don't know why they didn't go with this. Maybe they thought it looked too weird. I will say, in the first movie, it didn't look that weird. It really didn't. In the very original movie, by the way, I'm talking about. It's a choice by them. It looks very, like I said, ancient Egyptian-ish. I don't know why they made Outward look like that, but it is what it is. NetherRealm looks great, I must say. Can't floor it at all. I mean, it's mostly where, Scorpion's going to show up, so he's going to get the special treatment, so the NetherRealm has to look pinpoint accurate. Let's look amazing, and I think they did a great job with that. I am excited. I just want to say this is overall now. I am excited to see the movie 100%, but there's a big but. I know how Mortal Kombat marketing works, and usually when they drop a trailer on a movie, it looks amazing, right? No matter whether it's a live action movie or an animated movie, it looks amazing. Their trailers always look good. Even when you look at the game trailers look amazing. And then when you get into the meat of the bones, into watching the movie or playing the game, you realize it's not as cut and dry as what the trailer is ensuing or trying to show you. And that's kind of my problem with this, is the trailer looks good, but is the movie going to be the same? And I'm very skeptical about it. Very, very skeptical. Like I said previously, the most important thing for this movie is the story to be good, right? Because clearly the visuals and CGIs and everything is either okay or good, right? We're not getting very bad levels of CGI like in Black Widow when the explosion happened. Let's not talk about it. But, it's a story. If the story is really good and it sticks and everyone likes it, the hardcore fans and the casual base, then all of these little nitpicky things can be totally overlooked for sure. But the story is what needs to kill it. If the story is not good, which is what has flawed pretty much almost every MK movie of all time, besides like maybe the original, but the sequel to the original, Annihilation, terrible story. Scorpion's Revenge, terrible story. Battle of the Realms, terrible story. Snowblind was actually okay, I will give them that, but their marketing team was not on point with that for whatever reason. Cage Match was not a good story, but it was a very pretty looking movie, so I guess people gave it a pass. My point is, like I said, the story has to be good, because it's always been Mortal Kombat's problem. And you think the best story that they may have ever done was MK11. If you have played MK11, you played the original story and the Aftermath story, those stories put together was probably single-handedly the best story in any given game of all time. Better than the MK9 story, but MK9 story has, a product of time, pretty much. MK11 sold not only because it was a good-looking game, but because the story was exceptional, especially when they added the Aftermath DLC. And that's what happens. That's what needs to happen in this movie. This movie needs to kill the story. But anyways, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed my breakdown of the movie and my thoughts. Please drop a like on the video. It helps me spread my content through YouTube. And if you have any thoughts yourself, leave them in the comments down below. I'm curious to hear what everybody else is thinking about this movie when it comes out in October. And please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. I'm definitely going to do a review of this movie as well. So hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you know when I drop that. And hey, if you like playing Mortal Kombat and watching streams about Mortal Kombat and some other games, maybe you're a gamer, you like, some other games, I do other content on other games too. So yeah, that's going to be it, guys. Thank you so much. I'll catch you guys in the next one.